At the dawn of the 20th century, the Ottoman Empire was kindly referred to as the sick man of Europe. This wasn't just a clever nickname, it was a diagnosis. For centuries, it had been a sprawling, multinational empire, and now it was having a massive 500-year-long garage sale where everything must go. Waiting hungrily on its doorstep were the new kids on the block: Serbia, Bulgaria, Greece, and Montenegro. These were nations fresh out of the box, powered by a shiny new ideology called nationalism. They'd read the instruction manual, which basically said, find everyone who speaks your language, draw a border around them, and invent a glorious ancient history. The problem was their proposed borders all overlapped in a place called Macedonia. The Ottomans' final illness was accelerated by the Young Turk Revolution in 1908, a movement promising modernization and Ottoman unity, which ironically just made all the non-Turkish groups want to leave the party even faster. It was like a landlord promising to fix the plumbing right before everyone's lease was up. Nobody was waiting around to see if he was serious. So, these four ambitious nations decided to do something completely out of character: cooperate. They formed the Balkan League in 1912. This alliance was less a band of brothers and more a group project where everyone hates each other but really wants a good grade. The grade in this case was carving up European Turkey. Playing the role of the encouraging but also self-interested teacher was Russia, who saw a chance to stick it to the Ottomans and Austro-Hungary. Russian diplomats helped broker the deals, which involved a series of secret treaties that were masterpieces of constructive ambiguity. They agreed to support each other militarily, but the specifics of who got what land were fuzzy. The Serbo-Bulgarian Treaty, for instance, basically said they'd divide Macedonia, unless they couldn't agree, in which case they'd ask the Russian Tsar to arbitrate. A foolproof plan, really. What could go wrong with letting your giant, powerful neighbor decide your future borders? It was a handshake deal made while both parties were hiding daggers behind their backs, smiling for the cameras. In October 1912, the Balkan League declared war, and the Ottoman Empire promptly fell down a flight of stairs. Everyone, including the Ottomans themselves, was shocked at how quickly things unraveled. The Balkan armies, underestimated and seen as provincial, were actually quite modern and incredibly motivated. The Ottomans, meanwhile, were struggling with internal chaos, logistical nightmares, and an army that wasn't sure who it was fighting for. The Bulgarians crushed them at the Battle of Kirk-Kilisse, a victory so swift the Bulgarian command initially thought their field reports were exaggerated. The Serbs won a decisive victory at Kumanovo, shattering the Ottoman Vardar army and effectively reclaiming medieval Serbia's heartland. Or so their propaganda said. The Greeks advanced north, their navy blockading the Aegean and preventing Ottoman reinforcements from arriving. Even Montenegro got in on the action, capturing the city of Scutari after a brutal siege. This was supposed to be a long, hard-fought war. Instead, in less than 2 months, the Ottoman Empire in Europe had basically ceased to exist outside of a few besieged fortresses. The sick man wasn't just sick, he was in a coma, and his heirs were already measuring the drapes. The speed of the collapse was breathtaking and terrifying. With the common enemy conveniently vanquished, the Allies faced a much harder question: what to do with Macedonia? This wasn't just a piece of land, it was a demographic jigsaw puzzle assembled by a drunk. You had communities of Greeks, Bulgarians, Serbs, Albanians, Turks, Vlachs, and Jews, often living in the same village, sometimes on the same street. Nationalism, the ideology driving this whole affair, requires clean lines. It demands that people fit into neat, color-coded boxes. Macedonia was not neat. So, each country produced its own ethnographic maps, which were less scientific documents and more wish-fulfillment fantasies. A Serbian map would show the entire region as populated by Macedoslavs, who were obviously Serbs. A Bulgarian map would show the exact same people as pure Bulgarians. A Greek map would claim the ancient lineage of Alexander the Great for the region's Greek speakers. They couldn't all be right. The brutal truth was that a Macedonian identity was just beginning to form. It was a population up for grabs. And the Balkan League was about to grab it. Peace, bloody peace. By May 1913, the major powers had forced everyone to sign the Treaty of London, officially ending the war. The Ottomans gave up basically all their European territory. Hooray! Now came the fun part, dividing the spoils. It was like watching four people who just won the lottery immediately start suing each other over the winnings. Bulgaria had done the bulk of the fighting against the main Ottoman armies in Thrace and felt entitled to the lion's share of Macedonia. Serbia, however, had been promised access to the Adriatic Sea, but Austro-Hungary and Italy blocked that by creating the new state of Albania. So Serbia, feeling shortchanged, decided it would just keep the parts of Macedonia it had occupied. Thank you very much. Greece, having captured the prize city of Thessaloniki, also had no intention of giving up its gains. The pre-war agreements were now treated as polite suggestions. The Tsar, who was supposed to be the referee, was getting ignored. Tensions skyrocketed. Armies that had been fighting side by side were now facing off, digging new trenches. The victory parade hadn't even been planned, and they were already preparing for the next war. Bulgaria, feeling cheated and diplomatically isolated, made a decision that belongs in the Bad Ideas Hall of Fame. On the night of June 29, 1913, without a declaration of war, Bulgarian forces launched a surprise attack on their Serbian and Greek allies. King Ferdinand of Bulgaria apparently thought a quick, decisive blow would force everyone to the negotiating table on his terms. This was a catastrophic miscalculation. Serbia and Greece were not only ready for it, but they immediately formalized their own anti-Bulgarian alliance. The surprise was a complete failure. And then things got worse for Bulgaria. Seeing its neighbor distracted, Romania decided this was the perfect time to invade from the north to grab a piece of territory it had always wanted. Not to be left out of the dog pile, the Ottoman Empire, the guys who had just lost the last war, decided to get back in the game and attacked from the southeast to reclaim the city of Edirne. Within a month, Bulgaria was being attacked from all four sides. It was less a war and more a regional beatdown. The Second Balkan War became a textbook example of how to turn a stunning victory into a national disaster in 30 days or less. The Second Balkan War ended as quickly as it started. With its armies collapsing, Bulgaria sued for peace. The resulting Treaty of Bucharest in August 1913 was brutal. Bulgaria was stripped of most of its gains from the First War. Serbia and Greece solidified their control over the majority of Macedonia. Romania got the chunk of land it wanted, southern Dobruja. The Ottomans got to keep Edirne. Everybody won, except the country that started the whole thing. The new map of the Balkans was now drawn, but it wasn't drawn with ink, it was drawn with ethnic cleansing. The new borders made little sense to the people living there. Suddenly, hundreds of thousands of Bulgarians found themselves living in Greece and Serbia. Huge Turkish populations were now minorities in Christian states. Greeks were stranded in what was now Albania or Bulgaria. This wasn't a solution. It was the creation of 100 new problems, a series of resentments and grievances that would fester for generations. The lines on the map were crisp, but the reality on the ground was a bleeding, chaotic mess. These wars weren't just about territory, they were about creating ethnically pure nations, and the methods were horrific. Irregular militias like the Serbian Chetniks, Bulgarian Komitadjis, and Greek Andartes committed unspeakable atrocities. They weren't just soldiers, they were enforcers of national identity. Villages were burned, not for strategic reasons, but because they were inhabited by the wrong people. Priests were forced to change their liturgy from Bulgarian to Serbian overnight. School teachers were replaced. Surnames were forcibly changed to sound more Greek or Serbian. This was a war against culture itself. The Carnegie Endowment for International Peace sent an investigative commission in 1913. Their report is a chilling, meticulous catalogue of massacres, systematic terror, and forced migrations conducted by all sides. It concluded that the armies were often more restrained than the militias and local populations who joined in the violence. This wasn't a bug in the system of nationalism, it was a feature. To create a clean nation-state out of a mixed region, you have to clean the people. The term Balkanization, meaning to break a region into smaller hostile units, was born right here, covered in blood and ashes.
So, what was the result of all this? Serbia doubled in size and became the undisputed military power in the region. This made them confident, aggressive, and a massive headache for the neighboring Austro-Hungarian Empire, which had its own large, restless Serb population. Think of it as a small, angry dog suddenly getting much bigger and barking at the old, cranky bulldog next door. Bulgaria, humiliated and bitter, was now consumed by a desire for revenge. This made them the perfect candidate to join the Central Powers in the next big European conflict, just to get back at Serbia. A brand new country, Albania, was plopped onto the map mostly to keep Serbia and Greece away from the coast and to be a source of instability for the next century. And the Ottoman Empire, having briefly re-entered the fight, got a taste for revanchism, which would lead its leaders, the Young Turks, to make some truly terrible decisions just a year later. The Balkan Wars didn't solve any problems. They just took all the existing ethnic tensions, put them in a pressure cooker, and turned the heat all the way up. The entire peninsula was now a web of fragile alliances and seething hatreds just waiting for a spark.
And that spark came on June 28, 1914. A young Bosnian Serb nationalist named Gavrilo Princip assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary in Sarajevo. Princip was a member of a group armed and supported by the Black Hand, a secret society with deep ties to Serbian military intelligence. This wasn't some isolated act of a lone madman, it was the direct product of the supercharged, victorious Serbian nationalism that came out of the Balkan Wars. Serbia's success had convinced nationalists that a greater Serbia, uniting all Serbs, was not just a dream but an achievable destiny, and Austria-Hungary was the final obstacle. Austria-Hungary saw the assassination as a direct challenge from this upstart Serbian state and issued an ultimatum it knew would be rejected. Russia backed Serbia, Germany backed Austria-Hungary. The whole intricate, stupid system of alliances clicked into place. The Balkan powder keg, lit by the fires of its own local wars, finally exploded and took the entire world with it. The Balkan Wars weren't a footnote to World War I, they were the opening act that set the stage, introduced the characters, and showed everyone just how bloody things were about to get. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more historical insights. Thanks for watching, nerds!